After the tribulation ends, then the sun will grow dim, and the moon will not shine, and the stars will fall, the heavens will convulse. Then all mankind will see me, the Messiah, coming in the clouds with great power and glory. And I will send out the angels to gather together my chosen ones from all over the world, from the farthest bounds of earth and heaven. Now, here is a lesson from a fig tree. When its buds become tender and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that spring has come. And when you see these things happening that I've described, you can be sure that my return is very near, that I'm right at the door. Yes, these are the events that will signal the end of the age. Heaven and earth shall disappear, but my words shall stand forevermore. However, no one, not even the angels in heaven, nor I myself, knows the day or the hour when these things will happen. Only the Father knows. And since you don't know when it will happen, stay alert. Be on the watch. My coming can be compared with that of a man who went on a trip to another country. He laid out his employees' work for them to do while he was gone, and told the gatekeeper to watch for his return. Keep a sharp lookout, for you do not know when I will come, at evening, at midnight, early dawn, or late daybreak. Don't let me find you sleeping. Watch for my return. This is my message to you and to everyone else.
Peanuts cartoons, remember Peanuts cartoons? Charles Schultz used to draw the Peanuts cartoons, and whenever something happened that caused Charlie Brown or one of the characters in the cartoons to be just like completely frustrated, you'd get this frame where their head's right back, their mouths wide open, and it says, "Ah," above it, spelled A-U-U-G-H with an exclamation mark. That was what happened. Charlie Brown would go, "Ah," like after he just went to kick the football and Lucy pulls it away, right? Every time. And I'm feeling like that right now because it's the beginning of a new church year, and the 3 weeks at the end of the previous church year, we heard this story from Matthew about how the end is coming. And the disciples have this conversation with Jesus, and Jesus tells them all about, the end and the death and destruction and the suffering and everything and all that stuff. And it's a new year. You'd think we'd have something different. Thank you. Because no. Same story. Different day. Different year. Same story. And that's a good thing, but I'll come back to that in a second. Here's the part that's not. The thing is, we focus, and we hear these stories about the end times and everything. What do we focus on? We focus on the death, the destruction, the suffering. The part of Revelation, the book of Revelation, that people like the most. I think I can actually say that way, like the most, is the part about all the bad stuff that's going to happen. The horsemen of the apocalypse and all that stuff. That's the part we focus on. It would make great movies. It has made great movies. And actually some really bad ones too. But it's exciting, it's interesting, and it's something that we can be afraid of, and we like to be scared. So that's the part that we focus on. And I know for 3 weeks now I've been trying to get you to focus not on that, but on the good news of that story and everything. But here we are again with another Sunday, different gospel, same story. The end is near, death and destruction, suffering. But you don't know when. It's going to be a surprise. Not a good one, but it's going to be a surprise. And I say not a good one because when we hear that story, of course, not only do we like to hear that story, we also like to fight it. We also like to see ourselves as fighting against all that death and destruction and suffering, which seems kind of odd given that that's what has to happen in order for the good stuff to happen. But still, that's how we tend to see that story. When the end is coming, we do our best to survive it. Right? Because we want to survive it. If only we actually trusted in God that we would. But still, That's how we see these stories. It's about fear. And you can see why for centuries, with all due respect, for centuries, the church has really liked to tell that story. Because if I can make you afraid, and then I can tell you, you don't need to be afraid because I can tell you what to do, I have a lot of power. I have a lot of influence over you. I have the solutions. I have the answers. Don't worry. All you have to do is trust in me. Let me say that again. All you have to do is trust in me, not God, me, because I have the answers. That gives me a lot of power. And the part of that story, of course, that you're most fearful of is the part that I can tell you how to behave in order to avoid, right? It's the judgment piece. All that other stuff, you can join a militia or build a bunker or whatever. But when it comes to the judgment thing, which is inevitable, you're all going to be judged. And unless you want to go to the fiery place, you'll do what I say. Because I can save you from the fiery place. Did I mention all you have to do is what I tell you? You could also send me money. Or re-elect me. Because it's the same story. This is what's so wrong with the world and politics right now, is that if I can make you afraid of something, tell you who's to blame for it, and then how I can fix it for you, you'll vote for me. Right? Of course you will, because I can save you from evil. The real evil is trying to convince you all that you should be afraid. Wait, it gets worse. The real evil is to convince you that you should be afraid and to invoke Jesus as I do it. Because Jesus never said you should be afraid. There's a translation actually of this. Thank you for reading that one, because there's a translation of this passage from Mark that in the middle of it, it has Jesus say, beware. You don't know the time. Beware. We know what beware means. It means be on guard. It means be ready to defend yourself. Something's coming that you should be afraid of. Beware. Jesus never said beware. I think whatever fallible human being wrote that down heard Jesus say something and went, he means beware. Okay. Why would Jesus ever say beware? His most favorite thing to say to people was, don't be afraid. Why would he say beware? How could you possibly ever use Jesus and anything Jesus says as a way to make people afraid? There is a consistency here, and it's not week after week of hearing a story about the end times and judgment. It's week after week after week after week of hearing a story of hope, because that's what Jesus brings. Jesus doesn't bring fear. Jesus brings hope, which is the certainty that we should not be afraid. That's the consistency of the story. And you know what? That's the consistency of the story 365 days of the year. It is. It truly is. Sure, there are weeks when we hear these stories about the end times and we hear about judgment. And we hear stories of Jesus telling a story that implies the end is near, you're going to be judged, and some of you are going to the fiery place. Who do you think gets to decide that, though? Is it me? I'll just go through the room right now, and I'll tell you which of you are going to the fiery place. So we start over here. Wait, remember the sheep and goats thing? Who's on the left and who's on the right? It certainly sounds like it, doesn't it? It certainly sounds like it. But this is the same Jesus who showed love and compassion and care to people that no one else did. This is the same Jesus who tried to bring back into society and reconnect with people that were cast out, people that had already been cast into the fiery furnace by others. Why? Because we don't get to judge. We don't. If there truly is a judgment, and frankly, I believe there truly is a judgment, and that judgment is God loves everyone, and because God loves everyone, and God's grace is for everyone, everyone returns to God. Everyone returns to God. If it helps you in any way to understand that that's not the case, and that you have a completely different view of that whole hell thing, although since I'm talking about it, you might now be thinking this is hell. But if you have you are welcome to that view. You are absolutely welcome to that view. You are absolutely not welcome to the view that you should be afraid. Because Jesus isn't about, and Jesus certainly is not about instilling fear in others. The only power I have is the power to stand here and tell you, you have it. You have all of it. 100% of it. I cannot tell you what to do. I cannot tell you which of you are going to the fiery place. And I have no idea why I keep calling it the fiery place. I think we can say hell in church. Are we allowed to say hell in church? I think we can say hell. I don't have that power. The power that you have all of, is the power to love. The power to show compassion and grace and care to others. The power to believe. The power to have hope every day. Every day. Every minute of every day. Because that's the power of Jesus. That's what Jesus brings. Not fear, it's hope. And that hope isn't, like I said earlier, that hope isn't like, I hope we're having grilled cheese for lunch. Well, unless, of course, you're making lunch and you intentionally make grilled cheese, because that's the kind of hope Jesus talks about. It's the certainty. It's not wishful thinking. It's the certainty. We know. We have hope that God loves us because God does love us. We have hope that we need not fear that judgment, that end of days, those stories, because we have hope. We have hope. That's what Jesus brings to us. So what are you going to bring to others? Will you bring fear to others? Will you bring power or control over others? Will you bring, I was going to say, will you bring hate? But you can't bring hate without bringing the fear part first, because that's where it comes from, isn't it? I mean, realistically, and not that I'm going to talk about politics, but just briefly, I'm going to talk about politics. One of the reasons what is happening in the world right now is happening is because people are afraid. It's not the fact that they hate others is a result of that fear. They're afraid. Is there any chance, do you think, that instead of trying to battle the symptoms, which is hate, we might actually get to the root, which is the fear, and address people's fears? And that's not, I'm not just talking about things like racism and all of the sexual misconduct and all of that stuff that's happening in the world right now. I'm talking about the fact that all it takes is for one person to say this, and somebody who doesn't agree with them then doesn't just disagree with them, they attack them. They're afraid of that opinion. They're afraid. Why? Why are we afraid? Why are we so afraid? Because our life might change? Because if we open ourselves to other people's opinions, we might actually learn something? Because the world might change. Ooh, that's different. Of course, there are lots of things to be afraid of. But here we are on the first Sunday of Advent. Hope is the theme of the first Sunday of Advent. Let's just focus on that hope for a minute. It's a huge challenge, isn't it? Because when we talk about it, I'm not talking about warm fuzzies. It would be nice if it were that simple. I'm not talking about let's all have a group hug. Let's all apologize to each other for things. That's not what I mean. Hope is hard work. It is hard work. It is hard work to love your enemy. Jesus never said it wasn't. He just said you should love your enemy. Jesus never said you're going to be successful 100% of the time at caring for those who resist your care. Jesus never said you're going to be 100% successful at loving your neighbor as yourself, because loving ourselves is hard. But we have hope that we'll get there. We have hope that we'll get there. I'm just going to say it a third time, and not because it's like Beetlejuice or anything, and then it'll actually happen, but we have hope that we'll get there because hope is a certainty that it will happen. And with Jesus, with God, with understanding that love, whatever you want to call God, that love that connects us and binds us together is part of our life, we have the sure and certain hope that we will get there. It's the beginning of a new year. Is the story the same? Yes, it is. Because it's the story